All right, everybody. I'm here with C. Gordon Moose, better known as Moose. Hey, Moose.
How are you?
Great. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful.
Awesome. So, Moose is our focus guy. How did you become the focus guy, Moose?
Well, it's yeah. I mean, I brand myself as your focus guy.
Yeah.
I'm a commercial real estate guy from way back,
hmm
and just over the
Oh, and
years,
that's how
looking
we
at
met, was like a commercial real estate podcast.
exactly, yeah, I do that Saturday morning thing with Mike Morowski. So, that's where I am. But looking back, just like everybody, you look back on your career and you say, what was I successful? What was my worst investment or my worst experience, right? Or what was the better ones? And I realized that when I was focused, when I was more focused, I was more successful. And when I was less focused, I was less successful. So just my work with the Napoleon Hill Foundation and the book Think and Grow Rich and Bob Proctor, who's one of my mentors, I developed the program really for myself. It was all about finding, maintaining, and sustaining my focus.
hmm
And then it just evolved into a coaching and training program that I do for other people. So, that's really how it all came about.
That's awesome. That's cool that that Bob Proctor was one of your mentors or you were involved in
Yeah,
his
I worked with
program.
I worked with Bob for about 3 years. And paid him a lot of money, but it was worth every penny. He's just an amazing guy. Most people know him from the movie The Secret.
hmm
But Bob's pushing 90 years old. He is one of the last living connections to Napoleon Hill, who of course wrote the great classic book Think and Grow Rich.
Right.
Bob worked directly for Napoleon Hill. There's only a handful of people that are directly linked to him.
Didn't Earl Nightingale too?
Well, Earl Nightingale was the guy. Earl Nightingale and Victor Conan started Nightingale Conan Corporation in Chicago,
Uh-huh.
and they were the ones that promoted all of the self-help and self-improvement stuff
hmm
back in the 50s and 60s. And Earl Nightingale was a legend himself. Bob Proctor was actually the president of that company. So
Oh,
those guys are all connected, And Earl Nightingale's most famous thing is a thing called "The Strangest Secret," which was a recording, and it's one of those really goofy things. It sounds like your grandfather recorded it, like in
yeah.
that whole vernacular of the 50s. But it's a great program, and it's directly related to everything that Napoleon Hill was talking about,
Yeah, it
and C.
comes a
Clement
lot out of
Stone.
it. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
that's
So,
how the focus. That's how the Find Your Focus program developed.
and we'll talk more about it too at the end, but what we were talking about before was a lot of us we're residential real estate agents, and we get into this like habit of thinking that we don't have like enough time and we have to like manage the time. So, talk to us about time management versus task management.
Sure. Well, think about it. Time is a human-made thing. People make up time. The trees, the universe, the ocean has no concept of time, right? So you can't really manage it. There's no
Right.
managing time. I mean, every morning we wake up with 86,400 seconds or whatever that number is, and
Yeah.
yeah, at the end of the day, they're gone, right? So it's really about task management, and that's something you can sink your teeth into, and really, that's something you can manage because it's tangible.
And you
Time
can
is
control it more.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And I what I do, I work with people, and I've worked with a lot of realtors and small business people. Figure out how to prioritize your tasks. Think of things that you do every day, and it may
Mhm.
start with you just taking out a piece of paper and writing down from the moment you wake up to the time you go to sleep. What did I do today? Like literally write
Yeah.
down. I made a cup of coffee. I took a shower. I called
Right.
my mom. Whatever it is. And then you start to quantify and you become aware of what you're doing, and then you look at them and you say, what can I eliminate? Like,
Yeah.
really, what can I eliminate? What don't I is not required for me to succeed, right?
Right.
That's the first thing. Then you look at what can I delegate, right? Those are things
Yeah.
that are required for you to succeed, but
hmm
don't need you, or it's not required that you do it,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
then look at the things that you can prioritize, right? That actually require you to do them, and then you can prioritize there. So I talk about eliminate, delegate, and prioritize, right? And
I want to back
that's
up
really
real
helpful.
quick if you don't mind. So because I've done that before where you keep track of what you do, and it's really helpful because it's easy. You want to start and try to jump in and say, what can I delegate? What's important, blah, blah, blah. But really keeping track of what you do every day is critical. So like I can include I have like this breakdown of like what you do every 15 minutes and you do it over 3 days. Is that kind of like is that similar to what you recommend?
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%.
Well, I can put that if people want that like tracker, I can put it at jennifermertlin.com/vault. So you keep track of everything, you keep track for 3 days, then like maybe highlight it or something of like, what can I delegate? And just start with that.
Well, no, you start with what you can eliminate.
Which can, oh yeah, let's get rid of
Yeah,
everything, cut
yeah,
it in half.
just stuff. Seriously, stuff that you're doing, right? Exactly, and
Yeah.
we all have that, right? And
Yeah.
unless you track it, you're not aware of it, right? And you're never going to direct something you don't control,
Oh
and you're
my
never
God.
going to control something you're not aware of. So
Right.
that first step of writing it down elevates your level of awareness, and you become aware of it. Then you can start to control it, and then you can start to direct it, right? So the
What are
first
you
step is,
seeing? Like, how much elimination are you seeing people get rid of on average?
oh my God. I mean, there's some people
So
that
many.
it's not a lot. Other people are like, oh my God, 3/4 of what I do every day, I can totally eliminate. Right.
It's
And it's really,
crazy.
well, it's really just your level of awareness. Right.
Right.
And you start to look at it and you go, oh, okay, it's really not required for me to do this. Right. And a lot of times these days, it's people tell me they get off of Facebook, they get
Yep.
off of Instagram, they get
Yep.
off, they check their emails at certain times during the day. The 4 hour work week says, check your emails in the morning and the evening and let people know that, right? I mean, say,
Yeah.
hey, I respond to emails between 8 and 8:30 and between 2 and 2:30 every day. So if you send me an email at 9 a.m., don't expect a response until 2:30 because,
Yeah.
so you start to control that stuff, right? And you start, all the distractions start to go away because you just eliminate this stuff,
Yeah.
And then what people find is they say, oh, I have more time in the day. I'm like, no, you don't. There's only
It's the
24
same
hours of the
amount of
time.
time.
Yeah, you're just getting more efficient, right? You're making better use of your time because you're managing your tasks.
That's
And then
exciting.
whatever,
Like, what would we do with our time if we got rid of like 20% of the crap that we don't even need to be doing anyway?
oh my God. Yeah, hey, listen, Bob Proctor, he's part of the 5 a.m. club, right? He said, Carl, just get up a half hour earlier every day and you'll have 3.5 more hours a week, right? I mean, you could
Right.
go and, I mean, it's those simple little things that we forget,
Yeah.
especially when you're a realtor, especially, and listen, I got there myself, right? We own 22 buildings, I was doing everything, and we got to a point where like, I can't do this anymore, right? And a lot of realtors, they're in their business themselves and they think they have to do it all, and they're trying to manage all this stuff, and they're always saying, oh, I don't have enough time in the day. And they don't realize that there's a lot of stuff they can eliminate and there's a
Yep.
ton of stuff they can delegate, right?
Yeah.
And these days you can hire virtual assistants and again, I don't, in a foreign country, I'm not going to mention because I don't want to insult anybody or whatever, but I'm just saying, you can go to guru.com or there's a bunch of different sites. You can hire someone for 8, 9, $10 an hour
Yeah.
to do stuff while you're sleeping because they're on the other side of the world.
Well, I have
Where
a VA right now that helps with the podcast, and she has like over the last 6 months, she's increased our podcast like readership or whatever, your listenership, like over 150% in the last 6 months,
wow,
just by
yeah,
doing that stuff that like it would take me days to do. You know what I mean?
right,
Like it would take me forever. And she just
right.
like does it just, and I don't think about it and it just happens.
Well, that's your area of expertise. I mean, that's a perfect example. You don't want to eliminate that, right? But
No.
you want to delegate that, right? You
Right.
delegate it to somebody because if you valued your time, the other thing I recommend too is really take inventory about what your time is worth, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can find somebody to do something that you're not required to do and it's going to cost you less than it's going to cost you, delegate it.
So like
Just
the
delegate
perfect example in like residential real estate is like if you get a transaction coordinator. So let's say your transaction coordinator, I mean, honestly, they could charge more money than they do, but here in Ohio, they're about 250 to 350, maybe $400 a transaction, something like that. But like the more expensive they are, then probably the higher your commission checks are too. So let's just say it's $400 a transaction, but your commission check is, if you took that 20 hours that they spend on the file and generated leads, how many deals could you get from that? At least one. And if your commission
right.
check is, $10,000, then then you'd be making, yeah, that's like a no brainer,
It's
right?
it's a 50x return. I mean,
Right.
if I give you 400, you're going to give me 10,000 back. Where do I write the check?
Right. Done. I'll
Let
do
me
it every day.
every day, all day, right? And that's what people don't get, and they look at it as, oh, it's a $400 out of pocket, but they don't realize that the amount, and by the way, what is our most valuable asset, right? It's time. It's not money. You'll replace money.
Right.
You'll replace money. You cannot replace your time. Bob used to say, people either spend their time saving money or they spend their money to save time.
Save
Which would you
time.
rather do? I'd rather save time, right? So
Yeah.
spend the money.
Right.
And
Right. But I do
and
think you do
especially,
have to look at the return for sure, right? But that's when you're looking at it, you're deciding, what am I delegating? What is this worth? What would it cost me? What am I going to do instead of doing this task, right?
of course, yeah, you
Yeah.
want to analyze, you want to make sure it's a good business decision, but don't get caught up in the mindset of, oh, I can do it all myself, or I don't want to spend the money, because think of it as an investment, right? And
Yeah.
if you can get that, 3, 4, 5, 10x return, it's worth it, because then it frees you up to do other things. Now, the only caveat is make sure that when you're taking something off your list, that whatever you're doing in replacement of that is also beneficial, moving you towards your goals,
Yes.
valuable, required, all that stuff. Don't jump out of the pan and into the fire, right?
Well, I think too, like when you're looking at that, it is helpful to have have a coach or something helping you with that, because you've been so long in this mindset of I'm doing it, I can do everything, blah blah blah, that it's going to be unreasonable for you to think that all of a sudden it's just going to flip and you're going to know exactly what to do. So I would even argue you need to solicit help in order to look at those things.
100%. And part of any coaching should be accountability, right? I mean, it should be, that accountability and the check-ins, right? And making sure that you're on track. Because listen, here's the reality. Say you're 40 years old. You've taken 40 years to wind up your mindset. You're not going to unwind it in 40 minutes.
I mean, but sometimes it feels like that, like a light bulb, but yeah, right.
Well, yeah, and you'll get those light bulbs, right? You'll
Yeah.
get those popcorns or whatever you call them, but it's unreasonable to think that you're going to unwind 20 or 30 years of mindset or paradigms, as Bob calls them,
Yeah.
in 20 minutes. So, I mean, my programs are usually 6 months. It's usually a 6-month run, and I tell people, it's like reading a book or watching a movie. Until you see the final scene or flip the final page, you're not really going to get the full bang for your buck. And
right.
it takes time, but and when you're committed to it, it's worth it in the long run, because at the end of the day, just like when you read a good book or see a great movie, you remember it for the rest of your life, right? It stays with you.
Yeah. So that's okay. So we've tracked our time. We've looked at things that we can eliminate. We've looked at things we can delegate. Now what?
Well, and then you want to prioritize, right? You really want to have some prioritization system, and there's tons of systems out there, whether it's a ABC priority or 1, 2, 3, or whatever that is. And then the next thing is really get into action, right? I mean, it takes action to do the list. It takes action to eliminate, delegate, and prioritize, right? And then it's required for you to get into action, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the key. That's a key thing that people also forget. They don't plan their activities. They don't plan their action, right? And then this stuff is not that new. It's stick to your plan. Create a plan, stick to it, give it a reasonable runtime. At least several weeks, right? Because things are going to happen, or you might have a short week or a long week or a holiday week. So give it a reasonable time frame to run that course, and then make course corrections, right? Just like if you were on a plane. If you got on a plane in New York and you were headed for LA, and you were off by 1 degree, by the time you get to the West Coast, you'll be in Seattle or Tijuana, right? So, the air crew is always making course corrections. Well, you should be doing that in your business as well. Hey, what worked?
Like one of the ahas for me when I kept track of my time and what I was doing was that I was allotting too much time to some things and not allotting enough time to the others. So while I 100% agree with you, it's give it enough time of doing the task, but it's also give it the task enough time. If you're going to, does it take you an hour to get ready, or does it take you an hour and a half? It makes a big difference, or 20 minutes, or whatever it is, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing is, the thing about time is, if you a little bit invested on the front end can make all the difference on the back end. I have teenage kids, and I tell my daughter, I said, honey,
teenage kids.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great, actually. They're great. But, there's a lot of lessons there. But I told her this morning, I'm like, listen, honey, we leave the house 5 minutes late, that's going to end up 20, 30 minutes on the back end, because that's just the way it works. If you're ahead of schedule, 5 minutes ahead of schedule, you're going to be on time, so, absolutely. You want to factor in that time component, and it's very important that you track this stuff, you know what I mean? And you really keep track of it.
Yeah, I think too, when you are putting your time in order of priority, you also, there's some kind of momentum that is gained there, because the priorities, like you said, are directly aligned like to your goals. And when that happens, like subconsciously, that, and consciously, that. So you gain momentum through the day. So I would argue, if you're feeling tired throughout the day, this is definitely an exercise that needs to happen, because there's probably a lot of things that you're doing that shouldn't be doing, or that you're doing and are not priority. Would you agree?
Right, and you're not energized. I mean,
Right.
when you accomplish things on your list, when you check things off, you get energized. You
Yeah.
feel good. You're like, wow, it was a great day. I got all my stuff done. The other thing is getting up early. I mean, I know when I get up early by noon, sometimes I'm looking around going, geez, I got everything done. What do I do now? You know what I mean? But that's a really great feeling. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, that's an important part of it too, is acknowledging yourself. The
Mhm.
other thing I want to say is, when you make your list, and I do it every night, right? I like to put what I'm going to do tomorrow on
Yeah.
a list tonight. And Bob told me, when I first started doing this exercise with Bob, I'd come with him with a list of 15 things. And he goes, what the heck do you want me to do with this? Right.
It's
So
too.
he said, he said, don't do more than about 6 or 7 things. Put the 6 or 7 top
That
things that you
sounds
want
like
to
a
get
lot
done.
too.
Well, I know, but and prioritize those, right?
Okay.
The two top, like A, B, C, right? So 2 in the A list, 2 in the C, B list, 2 in the
Oh,
C
gotcha.
list,
Okay.
right? And so, and he said, don't overwhelm yourself, because that's the other thing that people do. They overwhelm themselves, and then our subconscious puts us into tired mode, because we're
Right.
like, oh my God,
Right.
then the day becomes a drag, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
as opposed to saying, wow, it's 1 o'clock and I got all my stuff done,
Yeah.
then you're
You
like,
try to
that's
get like
great.
everything done at once. I mean, it's just not, it's unrealistic, and it's not going to happen.
Well, yeah, but realtors are interesting critters, right? I used to be a broker. Right? We're definitely A personalities. We're
Yep.
driven. We're goal oriented, right? We're driven,
Hmm.
right? We're money motivated, which is all good stuff. We're good hearted. We really do want to help our
Most
clients, right?
people
We
do.
want to,
Yeah.
yeah, we want to get that referral. We want to make them feel good, and we want, all that kind of stuff. That's all really, really good. However, you also have to understand that this is a business, right? If you're
Mhm.
serious about it, so take it and treat it like a business,
Right.
right? Treat it like a business. And sometimes you're going to be wearing the bottle washer cap. Sometimes you're going to be wearing the finance cap. Whatever.
Right.
My point is, realize that if it's not a hobby, it's a business, right? And treat it like that. And part of that is managing your task, managing yourself, because especially if you have a team, your team is going to look to you.
Right.
And if you're not organized, or you don't have the priorities straight, or you don't know what direction you're going, or you're doing things that they say is like, why does she do that? That's a total waste of time. I could do that. That's, treat it like that as well,
Yeah.
which is part of the coaching. I tell people, that's part of that maintaining and sustaining focus, right?
Hmm.
How do you maintain and sustain focus once you find it? It's
Yeah.
doing little things like that on a regular basis, right?
Right. No, that's absolutely true. It's a lot. Like, this is such good information. It's a lot to like digest, and it's stuff that we like know, but
Yeah.
it's, you still have to like be reminded, and like you said, set up the accountability. So can you tell us more about like the program that you have and the coaching? And
Yeah. So everything I do is based on the book Think and Grow Rich. This is really my
love that
my
book.
Bible, which if any of you, and I don't mean to make a plug, but if any of you know who Gary Keller is, and he wrote some really great books.
Yeah.
He's a Think and Grow Rich guy too. So
Yeah.
all of my programs are based on the 13 principles of success that are in Think and Grow Rich. And the Find Your Focus program is really divided into 3 sections. The first part is finding your focus.
Hmm.
The second part is maintaining your focus. And then the third part is sustaining it long term, right? And
Yeah.
the 13 principles, certain principles you use to find your focus, certain principles you use to maintain it, and other principles you use to sustain it. So that's really the basis of the program. My program's a 13-week program. We usually do it in a group setting.
Okay.
And we get together once a week on Zoom, and we go through those 13 principles and how they apply to finding, maintaining, and sustaining your focus. I also do one-on-one training where I work with people over a 6-month program.
Okay.
that's more customized, but it's all based on the principles of Think and Grow Rich. And if your listeners have never heard of that book, it's a classic book. It was written
It's a great
almost 100 years ago. It was actually written
Yeah.
over 100 years ago.
I was gonna
It
say I
was
thought it was over 100 because it was like in the 18 somethings,
no,
wasn't it?
well, it was first published in 1937, but it took the guy about 20 years to write it,
Oh,
28 years to write it. So he started it back when Einstein came up with the theory of relativity back in 1905. I mean, it's over 100 years old.
that's
Um,
awesome.
but the principles are as universal today as they were then. These are universal principles about success. And you know what? It's funny because a lot of people think they read the title Think and Grow Rich, and they
Yeah.
think it's about money, about investing. But you know what the funny thing is? Not a single one of the chapters has the word money in it. You know, the names of the chapters are desire,
Mhm.
right? Faith,
Yeah.
imagination,
Right.
organized planning, the subconscious mind, the brain, the mastermind principle, fears. I mean, I just named some of the
Right.
chapters. It's not about money. It's
No.
about overall wealth. It's
Right.
about wealth in all areas of your life. And that's what a lot of people miss.
Well, I think too, after reading it, I realized that every business book I read after that is based on it's like the original business book. Like you really don't need to read the others because it's all
Yeah.
actually there.
Well, yes and no. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
yeah, but pretty much anybody. Listen, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've led this class to thousands of people. I'm getting certified through the foundation. You know, most people, and in the introduction, Napoleon Hill actually says, "I've never." And remember, the book came out of him interviewing thousands of people, right, in the turn of the century. He said, "I never met somebody that didn't succeed when they used these principles, and I never met somebody that was successful that didn't use these principles, whether they knew it or not." So his point was, if you use these principles, you will succeed.
You will.
That's
Yes.
just the way it is.
Right.
And if you're successful, you're using the principles whether you know it or not.
Right. Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to offer anybody that's listening to this like a consultation or something so they can?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, let's say the first 10 people or so that if they want to, they can reach out to me. You could find me at info@yourfocusguy.com. That's
Okay.
info@yourfocusguy.com. Just if you want to email me, we can do a 10-minute or 15-minute, no cost, no obligation consultation. I call it over the phone. I
Okay.
call that a focus foundation. We'll really talk about your relationship with focus.
Mhm.
Because here's the other thing I want to say about it. You know, people say, well, why do you call yourself the focus guy? I don't care who you are. I don't care how successful you are. I don't care what's going on. There's times where we lose focus. And when you're focused, when you are laser focused, or Cardone likes to say 10x focus, right?
Mhm.
When you're that focused, you're unstoppable, right? And so no matter who you are, whether you're an Olympic athlete or somebody that's just struggling or a college student or somebody that's just getting started in real estate, when you lose your focus, the successful people know how to bring it back like that. So it's all about your foundation. So I'll do a 10-minute, 15-minute phone call with people, your audience. If they reach out to me, info@yourfocusguy, and it's a focus foundation phone call, and it will give you a baseline about where you are with your relationship to focus.
Okay. That would be awesome. Is that the best way to get a hold of you too if they have other questions or?
Absolutely. Yeah. The best way to get a hold of me, you can go to my website, but it's, like, again, it's one of the things that I need to delegate to somebody, and I have, but the best way to get in touch with me is info@yourfocusguy.com. And if you just put the name of your show or Focus Foundation in there, we'll schedule a time to get on the phone and do a quick 10, 15-minute call. And, it won't be a waste of your time. Let me leave it at that.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on. That was really great info. Thank you, Moose.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me on, and keep up the good work.
Have a great day.
Okay.